Happy day to you, fam. You beautiful humans. How the hell are ya? I hope you're doing well, and I hope as you're listening to this, it finds you in a good mood. I hope you're having a good day. If not, tomorrow is going to be epic. Just hold on, okay? You know what you're listening to. This is Hard Talks with a Blonde and a Hippie. I'm your trippy hippie, Alicia, jumping on the mic from good old Utah. Here solo tonight. I'm going to talk about some near and dear things to me. I've contemplated this episode a lot because I had a lineup of people, scheduled to come on the show, but, life happens and it is what it is. We're here. It's going to be a great episode. We have a lot to share. I've gotten a lot of questions through our email or over our Instagram page at Hard Talks with B&H over the last several months, asking more in-depth questions about, my rebellious teenage years or my adoption process or how it was going through that, like what it looked like as I was going through it. And so I decided to be raw and share with you guys. It's a lot, but it's really healthy for me because I have only started really processing this and getting through my adoption journey just recently. I've never really grieved it. I always put it away in the back of my mind, you know what I mean? But with that, I've also just seen my eldest son and had new things come to light. So I wanted to talk about being birth mom strong. Ding, ding. That bell is breaking. But I also wanted to dedicate this episode to my late uncle, Norman Todd Bates. Obviously, he didn't go by Norman Bates for a reason. That's my grandpa's name, too. And yes, they get shit all the time for Bates Motel or being psycho. And that's why he went by Todd. But 6 years ago today, as of this air date, August 27th, he lost his battle with brain cancer and passed away. And if you knew Todd, you knew he was a fucking comedian. Always the guy to make everyone else laugh. Always carefree. Very helpful, very handy, a true cowboy, like truly. Not just one of the dudes that dresses up like a cowboy. Like, no, he was a straight cowboy, had his own land, had his own horses. Like, he was just an upstanding guy. And he suffered from cystic fibrosis. I shouldn't say suffer. He lived with cystic fibrosis his whole life. And he grew up not knowing if he was going to live past 20, you know what I mean? But he did. He lived a very full life, even though he was too young when he passed. And I just wanted to commemorate him. I was a very rebellious child. Obviously, you're going to realize from this episode how rebellious I was, especially after my parents' divorce. I just didn't fucking care. Like, I just wanted to create noise, you know what I mean? And Todd always saw the best in me. I may not have always been a good kid or a good person, but I was always a really big dreamer. And he always believed that I could accomplish anything. I remember many conversations. When are you going to start that singing career? When are you going to, continue writing, write another story? He was always so supportive, and he was a really good uncle, and he was loved by so many. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, fam. It's just loss is so hard, especially like when time passes so quickly. It's astonishing to me. I can't believe it's been 6 years. I remember last year writing a commemorative thing on Facebook about him and his passing. And the year before that, it literally just feels like it's all run together, and it was just a few months ago. But yeah, a wonderful soul. So this is for you, Uncle Todd. I hope wherever you are, you're casting a line and catching some big fish in some heavenly waters. And I hope you're proud of me. I love you. Anyways, fam. This is an 18 and up podcast. I do talk all things controversial, difficult, or taboo. I curse like a mofo, a motherfucking sailor. All right, like you know it. You already know. But yeah, I wanted to name this episode "Birth Mom Strong" because, you know, speaking of all of our listeners. And the people who have been so kind and generous to reach out and want to connect with us via email or through our Instagram or Facebook or whatever. Even, you know, I'm not on Twitter a lot, but like even had some people comment on Twitter, and it's just like so nice to talk to you guys and know that like whatever we're bullshitting about, just a fucking blonde and a dumb hippie, like it might resonate with you because, you know, we're dealing with everyday issues as well. And it's easier knowing that someone else is out there who can relate and potentially be there for you and help you through that experience. And so it's been huge having people reach out about my adoption, asking about adoption. And if you haven't listened to episode 4, I believe it's literally titled Adoption. I strongly suggest you go back and listen to that. I know. Okay. So let me be real with you guys. The first like 12 episodes, I've said this so many times, they're horrible quality, but they really are. Just because like I was asking my laptop to do too much, you know, I had a 4-port USB plugged into the side with 4 microphones on, like cheap ones, USB mics. And yeah, if you've gotten this far and you've listened to us, like shout outs to you because yes, big applauses for you guys. But that episode is still so real with you guys. One of my very favorite episodes that we've recorded so far. When I started this idea behind Hard Talks, I wanted to create a platform where people could connect with each other when they normally wouldn't be able to. You know what I mean? Talking about real stuff like this, being able to relate to each other, you know, having a safe space to talk about the taboo bullshit that you can't talk about with your family or not even necessarily your spouse sometimes, you know, some of the insecurities that you have. Like, I wanted to create a safe space where we could literally talk about anything. And the amount of love and like the outpour of just real concern and like need for education, like has been amazing. Like, I can't tell you how many emails we've gotten like asking like where they can get more information about adoption near them, or if I know like of any local adoption counselors, or about the process itself. And I've actually mentioned her before, and I got an email from her, and I want to give full disclosure. So episode 4 is really great just because we dropped a lot of adoption statistics and we had several different perspectives on adoption in that episode. You know, someone who has been adopted themselves, someone who's an adoptive mother, and myself as a birth mother's perspective. So that episode is just very, very near and dear to me, very authentic, and I think you guys would like it. But a girl wrote into the show right after we started this. I mean, like literally, like it was mind blowing because it's just our 4th episode, you know? And she wrote in as Jane Doe from Cedar City. And as I've said before, we've slowly grown this pen palmanship. And she wrote me just recently. She's 7 months pregnant now. And she said that she wanted me to share her story. So our Jane Doe from Cedar City, her name is Ellie, and she's beautiful. And initially she wrote in as Jane Doe because she didn't want her parents to know. She hid her pregnancy from her very religious parents for 4 months. And she contemplated everything, including just running away. Like literally just like picking up, moving her whole life. And like that's how afraid she was to confront her parents about a child being born out of wedlock. With she said her boyfriend initially, but it was a one night stand. And so she just said she was embarrassed and didn't know how to tell them. And she said she found Hard Talks with a Blonde and a Hippie randomly on her Apple Podcasts as a local Utah podcast. And she decided to click play because we just dropped a new episode number 4 about adoption. And she said she didn't know why. She liked our logo. She said she liked the orange mountains, the logo. That's what drew her in. But Ellie was just breaking it down for me, and she was just explaining like how lost she was. Like she literally took a pregnancy test, came up positive, went to the local Walmart in Cedar City, bought 8 more, all positive. And she said she didn't even remember the boy's name. And she initially thought about abortion, but not that there's anything wrong with this, because I've been there. I've mentioned this before. I'm pro-choice for everything, but she personally just couldn't make that decision. But it was around the holidays when she found out, and she didn't go home. And it was amidst COVID too. So her parents started questioning her, like, you're taking all these online classes. Like, why can't you come home for Thanksgiving? And she just said she was so sick with morning sickness and anxiety. She failed out of that semester of classes. She just wasn't going to anything. She finally had to return home because she got kicked out of her apartment. She wasn't able to make her lease. And that's when she finally confronted her parents. But I'm moving ahead too quickly. When she said that she found Hard Talks, she said that she had contemplated an abortion and she contemplated having the child. But she said adoption didn't cross her mind at all. And the more she listened, she said that she was just moved and she wanted to provide a greater, healthier life for her baby, a life that she knew she wasn't able to provide in this moment in time. And that's when she wrote in anonymously and was asking me questions about abortion, if I ever thought about it, was asking me questions about the adoption process itself, was asking how difficult the healing process was thereafter and what that looked like. And our connection just grew from there. And now she's 7 months pregnant and she is living at home with her parents, taking online courses, and she is due and she's placing her baby girl with a mother and father who live in Seattle and Washington. She said they're her third cousins. So that was remarkable. When she first wrote in, I literally was sobbing. I sobbed because I remember being there. I remember being exactly where she was. And at 17, just being like, I don't know what the fuck. Like, I don't even know which way is west right now. Like, I was literally like, oh, fuck. Like, what? I work at Chick-fil-A. I'm in 11th grade. Like, I literally shit a brick. And I remember like being in the doctor's office, and my physician walks in, and I was there like 6 months before that because I had like a UTI or something. And she even asked me, she's like, do you want to get back on birth control? Because, oh, real story, guys. My mom, God love her, sweet woman, but she forced me to get on birth control when I turned 16 because, I was out there doing the nasty. I'm not going to lie. But I got that depot shot. Worst thing for me. I know it works for a lot of people, and that's like on the real. Like everybody's body is different, and it reacts to each thing differently, of course. So what works for you may definitely not work for me. But if you have questions about your birth control, definitely talk to your OB or your physician. But that depot shot literally made me fucking crazy. Like, I am already crazy, guys, but I mean, that literally made me crazy. Like, I can't even explain it. Like, my emotions were so heightened. Like, I was crying all the time. Like, I swore I was in love with baby daddy number one, which probably wasn't the case. Like, I didn't even know who I was. How could I love anyone else? But Jesus, like, what a ride. So I think that only lasted for a year, or maybe even less than that. Correct me in our email at hardtalkswithbnh@gmail.com. But it didn't last long because I was there literally at 17, and I remember my doctor treating me for a UTI and being like, you want birth control? You need to get back on birth control, Alicia. I'm just like, no, like, that is the worst shit in the world. Like, why would I ever do that? And again, and lo and behold, like 3 months later, I come in and I thought I had another UTI, which I did. And that is my telltale sign when I know I'm pregnant. Like, that's a scary thing. Like, if I get a UTI, like, I get all paranoid. I'm like, when's the last time I fucked someone? Like, no way. But I also have the Explanton in my arm, so I don't stress myself too hard anymore. But you ladies know what I mean. All right. But I just remember being in Ellie's position. My whole world froze, and I don't even remember saying anything in response to my doctor. Like, what I remember is or what I feel like I experienced was just like floating. You know what I mean? I don't even remember walking out of the doctor's office. I remember being in my car, and I sat there for a good 45 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I literally just stared out my windshield. And then I feel like after the initial impact of the news set in, after I processed it a little bit, I was like, oh God, like, now I have to tell my parents. I have to tell the kid. Got to tell the kid's parents. Like, fuck. Like, great. First person I told was one of my really good friends from high school. Shout out to you, Parker Brands. Thanks for being there for me in that moment. Because I went straight to his house, and I was like, yo, dude, like, my life is over. And he's like, total guy thing to say, but it came from his heart. Like, he was trying to be endearing, but he's like, well, it only lasts 9 months. And it's just like, I remember looking at him and being like, bitch, like, I gotta go home. Like, if I don't die, like if this isn't the end of my life here, like my parents will end it tonight when I get there. And my parents divorced, like I was saying, at an early age when I was 14. And I don't even remember who the fuck I told first. Like, I don't think I think I tried to avoid him for a little bit. I went home, I went down to my room, and I think I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I have some news. No. I was like, Mom, I have something to tell you. And she was guessing. She was like, what? And I was like, no. And like the more guesses she got wrong, I just sounded a little more distressed. And finally she's like, what is it? What's bad? What is it? And I was just like, Mom, you were right again. Like, I should have gone back on birth control or used a fucking condom or just not been out there having sex with stupid people. I'm pregnant. And yeah, she reacted, how you think she would. But I mean, after the initial shock and then her forcing me over to said baby daddy number one's house to talk to his parents, it was just a crazy, numb roller coaster from there. Fast pregnancy, like Sarah's. Like, I remember I wasn't planning on adoption initially. I was planning on keeping him. But I said this on episode 4. I got into a car crash and that was like the only asset I had, especially at that age. Like, I was like, how the fuck am I going to get to work? How am I going to fucking make $9 an hour? Like, how am I going to finish school? And my late uncle, God bless him, and his wife approached me and actually asked me if I'd be open to placing Grady, who I'll just call GT from here out, placing GT up for adoption to them, if I'd consider it. And of course, I reacted how you think I would. No. Why would I do that? But before baby daddy number one dropped out of the picture, we came over to my mom's house and I thought we were having a dinner, and we show up and the whole family's there. They had a whole, baby shower's worth of stuff there: diapers, clothes, wipes, formula, everything all set up as a cute display on my mom's fireplace. And I was so excited. I was flattered, This is before aunt and uncle approached me as well, my dad. But I was excited, and my grandfather, this is coming from a place of love too. I know it is now as an adult, but it was very hard to go through back then. He's like, oh no, Alicia, like, this isn't for you. I bought all of this stuff to show you how expensive it is. And he hands me a receipt. And he's like, all of this stuff is going back to the store tomorrow. I just needed to make an example. I literally was like at such a loss of words. I was like, is this an intervention? Like, and of course, baby daddy number one is shitting his pants and he's, looking for the nearest exit. At that point, I didn't fucking blame him. I was too. But and then I crashed my car and I just felt hopeless. And I was just like, shit, like, this is going to be rough. And I remember laying in bed one night. I remember this vividly. And I was probably like 5 months pregnant. I'd already felt, the baby move long before, but I was laying in bed and it was the first time I really noticed like him being super active. And I was like talking to my belly and it almost seemed like he was reacting to my voice, you know what I mean? And I just remember talking to him, and I was just like, I want to give you the best of everything. I want to be the best mom that I can be, but I don't know how to do that for you right now, you know? And I remember laying in bed just sobbing and talking to my unborn baby and literally just being like, you're going to be amazing. You're going to be incredible when you grow up. And I have to make sure that happens. And he is incredible. He's so smart. He's brilliant. But that was kind of like the turning point for me. The first time I ever considered my aunt and uncle's offer. And, you know, honestly, like, after I made that decision, I tried to detach myself from the pregnancy, but by that point it was too late. You know, I was already like 5 to 6 months along, and it's hard not to connect with something that you're literally making from scratch. You know what I mean? Like, that's your baby. And I mean, high school was rough. There's this bitch, and I will name her. Her name is Cheyenne. And if you ever listen to this, you were an asshole in high school, girl. Not okay. Not okay. First day of senior year, I graduated early, by the way, because I got my shit together. Like, I do my best work under pressure, guys. I really do. But I graduated early. I worked my ass off, did all these packets, got scholarships, got grants for graduating early. But that year was rough, and honestly, I couldn't wait to graduate early because I couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. Like, my son was due January 31st. He was born on January 30th. He was a day early, sorry. But the semester ends in like December around Christmas. So I was like, that's what we're gunning for. But I will never forget walking in, because I was, you know, I don't know, probably like 13, 14 weeks along, maybe even further than that, when my senior year of high school started, because I believe I found out in like June. Yeah. So I had a little baby bump. I was adorable, don't worry, as all pregnant women are. But I had all these electives, all these stupid classes that I had to take. And so I didn't want to take like choir, been there, done that. Didn't want to, you know, I literally signed up for like guitar class, which was dope. Ceramics, yoga. I had an art class. Literally, like, my whole senior year was electives, and then English. I did English packets because I only had like 2 credits left, and I was graduating a semester earlier. Anyways, that's boring. You don't need to know that. But first day of school, you know, they're doing a get to know you game in yoga. A teacher pairs up people that's, of course, people who don't know each other, or like people who aren't necessarily friends, or like cliques, or people who are seen together in the halls. Of course not. Why would they do that? Trying to expand our minds. Whatever. Do teachers do that anymore? But I get paired up with the most popular girl in our high school, the very well-off family, and a brand new, I think she drove a Camaro or Mustang, who cares? But you know, there's that kind of chick at every school. You know what I mean? It's probably not even her fault. She very well might be a very nice person as an adult today, but I get paired up with her, and it's a get to know you game. Like, ask me 5 questions, and then you have to introduce that person you just met into an entire fucking classroom full of strangers. Not very comforting on a first day, I might add. Especially walking around with, 17 and pregnant. But ask her these questions, what do you do? Do you work? What kind of car you drive? What's your favorite color? Stupid shit. Isn't the weather nice? And first thing out of the gate that she asked me, aren't you pregnant? Yeah, I am pregnant. cool. How far along are you? Oh, about 4 months almost. Wow, that's great. ... Okay, do you have any more questions? Teacher calls us about, because of course you guys know me, I'm thorough. I do what I'm told. I actually am like, okay, I'll ask you questions, trying to get to know you. She asked me one thing, and then the teacher's like, hey, everyone come together. Pfft, stupid. But I introduce her. I'm like, this is Cheyenne. She doesn't work. She's got a really nice car, really nice clothes. And then it's her turn, and she's like, this is Alicia. She's pregnant with the high school dropout loser's baby. You know what? I guarantee if she ever does hear this, she wouldn't even remember that. But it literally, like, destroyed me. Like, it shattered my freaking heart. And thank God for the teacher, because she was like, oh, that's not acceptable. Like, you can go to the office. And then I excused myself. But that's just an example. Like, it was rough going. Like, it was not fun. And I don't know. Like, it was all an experience. But then I have to sign papers, since we did an open in-family placement. My aunt and uncle got their own attorney. Like, there was no middleman. But I remember, like, being pregnant and getting picked up by my aunt and going to an attorney's office to, like, go over paperwork. And that's when baby daddy number one signed his rights over, when I was probably like 8 months pregnant. And probably earlier than that, actually, probably like 7 months pregnant. It was pretty quick after I like actually made that decision and had a sit down conversation with them, like a very, very long and intense one, like stipulations, you know what I mean? Like, adoption, it can be so confusing. It's such a beautiful, incredible, wonderful thing that brings so many people together and help so many children who desperately need it. But it can be very confusing, especially if one grows up in a family not knowing that they're adopted. And God, you guys need to go back to episode 4 if you haven't heard it, because I share my stepfather's experience with his son being placed for adoption. He placed his son for adoption as well. So that's something we were able to relate on for sure. But I didn't want a confusing childhood for this child of mine. I was not going to be called aunt, sister, cousin, what the fuck ever. Like, I am birth mom. As a human being, he has a right to know where he came from. And my aunt is so cute. She's always been really crafty. So she got us matching bears that have a beautiful quote on them that I'm actually looking at right now. It's sitting across from me. But he has one and I have one. And she also made me, a scrapbook, and she made him a scrapbook of pictures of me and his biological father, so he could know. So they have always been really good in respecting my wish in that way. But that doesn't mean it's always been easy going for us. I had really terrible withdrawals from my son. That sounds odd, but like they call it like baby cradle syndrome, like where when people like lose a baby or miscarriage or place their children, like they don't have a baby to hold, and it's literally a state of or form of depression. I got that super, super bad, and my grandma, God bless her, let me borrow her teacup chihuahua for like a month just so I could hold her, and she was my best friend. She was my little baby. But it was really hard navigating the relationship between my aunt and uncle and now parents of my biological son. You know what I mean? Like, I'll never forget when I was discharged from the hospital and my uncle came in and gave me the biggest hug. And he was like, I cannot thank you enough for this gift. Like, this is everything that we've ever wanted. Sorry. But he was like, I also feel so terrible and so guilty because I feel like I'm ripping a piece of your heart out, you know? And I remember him just holding me forever. And I remember leaving the hospital, laying down in the backseat of my mom's car, doped up on some Percocets. And, you know, she's just trying to get me to talk to her. She's like, we can go anywhere you want. Do you want a slushie? Do you want ice cream? Do you want a burger? Do you want a beer? Like, she literally was like, let's go get something, like anything you want. And all I wanted to do was sleep. And I think for the first 4 weeks, I just slept until my mom finally, like, forced me out of the house pretty much. Got me a job at her law firm. And, you know, it was just to help me, just to get me out and about. But I remember, like, being back at work that early and being sore still, and just, like, even that would make me sad and, like, trigger me. And I wasn't allowed to see GT for, I think it was 4 weeks until he was like a month old. And that was really hard. I think I made it to week 2, and I text my aunt and uncle, and I was like, can I please come over and just visit with you guys? And they had to say no to me. And that was heartbreaking. And I was very angry. I initially was like, they're not grateful. Like, I gave them this child. But as I've aged and processed my adoption journey more in depth, because it's taken me up until I literally started this production to actually go back and mull over everything that happened, because I just stored it away. It was, and still is, the hardest thing I've ever been through, but it's something I never processed or fully grieved or understood. You know what I mean? It's just something that I did. Like, it was one of those things that I look back on and I just feel like I was going through the motions. And so that's why this podcast has been so healing and therapeutic for me, because it's really had me search my own soul and go back and really evaluate my life choices and the path that my life has taken. Especially now that my uncle has passed away. And especially with it being in an open adoption. A lot of people don't have the openness that I do. You know, I still am able to see GT from afar. I know where he lives. Even though my biological uncle is passed, you know, my aunt is still in contact, even though she lives about 8 hours away now. And they don't visit too often, but I just saw him, and that was what sparked this episode. Talking about being birth mom strong, you know, talking about the onion that is adoption. I think the most asked question I get is, well, how do you get over something like that? And you don't. It's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing learning process, you know, learning how to cope with it all. And I said this too. I say an onion because you have your initial placement, and that is and can be heart-wrenching. But with some distance, you know, you learn how to cope, you learn how to figure out how to deal with your emotions. And not only that, but like postpartum and everything is still heightened. And God, I can't tell you how long I had to keep cabbage, like leaves, what the fuck ever they're called, on my boobs. And I had to wrap my breasts too tight with an ace bandage to stop my milk production. And it was so painful. And my milk, was going bad. And so I just stunk like rotten milk and cabbage, like it was horrible. But that was just, I remember like sitting in my mom's big tub and like letting my boobs soak because they were so heavy and achy, and like they were in the water and they just like expel milk from all the pressure and the buildup. And that was probably one of my lowest lows. It was just like, all this is going to waste. I have none, like, now that we've talked to people who like donate their breast milk, I could have done that. But I think that would have been too hard for me too, I ultimately just wanted to escape. I wanted to numb myself with drugs and alcohol and sex, and I just wanted to disappear, and I only saw baby daddy number one, I think maybe 3 times after I'd given birth. He came up and met him in the hospital with his mom and his grandparents, held him. And he came up briefly the second day I was in the hospital. And then we didn't see each other for a few weeks. And I went over and I tried to stay the night with him. I thought maybe like we'd be closer in some weird way. Like we made a human together. I don't know. But I remember staying the night, and I remember my parents actually letting me, because I was an adult at that point. I was like, I just gave birth and made this like incredibly selfless, life-altering adult decision. Like, bitch, I'm gonna go stay the night. Like, but I just kind of, and this is probably rude, like he'll never listen to this, but I was repulsed by him. I was like, it literally took me a baby to open my eyes and be like, oh my God, like, you're a loser. Like, what the fuck? Why have I cared so much? Why have I wasted so much time trying to make things work with someone who doesn't fucking care about me or a child that I just birthed? Like, his blood, like, he didn't want to keep our child, but he got his name tattooed over his heart, which still boggles my mind. I will probably never understand that because we will never speak. But I never saw him again after that. Oh, no, that's a lie. I saw him at a 7-Eleven. We literally bumped into each other when he was walking in and I was walking in and he was walking out. I didn't even realize it was him. He was with a bunch of people and literally bumps into me and he's like, fucking whore. What do you think your hippie did? She went and cried by the fucking slushy machine. Dear Lord, God. I'm just spewing all this out there for you guys. But thereafter, I really tried to find myself. I met my ex-husband very soon after my adoption process. My adoption took place. Just enough time to have a couple ex-boyfriends in between there, an arrest, getting in trouble with the law, like being on probation, working at Chick-fil-A, all the while. That's where we met. But I was just in a bad way, and I literally could have fallen in love with anyone who would have given me the time of day. But I moved to California for a while, had a lot of addiction issues out there, falling out with the person I lived with, and moved home and, got to know GT in a different light from there. There was a lot of distance between him and I the first couple of years because I was just trying to figure my own shit out, and I wasn't making very good life choices. So it wouldn't have been fair for me to be around him, that's why I gave him up. Like, I didn't want him to see me like that. So, of course, I saw him at holidays and birthdays and family dinners when we'd all go, but there were no, like, set visits. There were a few for the first year, and then we had a stipulation that my aunt would give me pictures as time moved on. Like, they were spaced out more, but like she would send me pictures at Walmart that were printed. So that was really nice. But just a lot of like self-discovery and, figuring out what's what from making said bad decisions. And it wasn't really until my uncle got really sick. He passed away from a brain tumor. But Grady was 2.5. And he's always just been such a profound and brilliant little boy. Like, he's always been in the know. Like, he can read a room. He can read you and how you feel. Like, he's just whip smart and could talk in full sentences by like 1.5, 2. Was doing sign language. Like, I've said all this before. He's just so very smart. And it was very recent after my uncle passed away. And the first, like, it wasn't until he was probably like 6, I was actually able to take him myself overnight or drove with him for the first time or anything. So he would all stay like at my mom's house, and then I'd go over to my mom's and visit him and like stay the night there with them, But, this is a sad time. The whole family is mourning. Grady's staying the night at my mom's, and we're watching Brother Bear. And if you don't know what Brother Bear is, let me tell you. Brother Bear is a Disney movie. Super cute. Highly recommend it. But it's a cartoon. It's an animated movie. And it's one that he wanted to watch like on repeat, as kids tend to do. But the general premise of the movie is it's a tribe of indigenous people living up in Alaska. And they believe in reincarnation. Oldest brother dies, and then middle brother or youngest brother obviously is upset, does some stupid things, gets attacked by a bear, and then suddenly turns into a bear and realizes that his eldest brother has been reincarnated into an eagle, and he's watching over all of them. And as I'm watching this with tiny 2-year-old GT, he looks up at me, and the eagle brother, we'll just call him that, his name's Sitka. He looks up at me and he's like, Alicia, is my daddy like Sitka? I was literally like, what? And he's like, is my daddy like Sitka? And we've talked about this with like Shelby several episodes ago, but it's almost like crazy, like when kids come up to you and like have a paranormal experience or a spiritual experience, because it moves you, right? Like it's scary sometimes. So I didn't know how to initially react. Like, I had a delayed reaction, and I was like, yeah, yes, like absolutely. He's like Sicko, like he's always around, like he's looking out for you, bud. And my uncle was a big hunter, really into fishing, big outdoorsman. And so I think maybe he connected with that too, it being in the wilderness, this animated movie. But I will never forget that. GT has always had this like special sense, almost. Like he's a little cowboy. I mean, straight living in Wyoming, rides horses, helps ranch, working boy. But I mean, he's very sensitive and he feels very deeply, and he probably got it from me, but what a curse. But it's also a great thing, because it's like when you have an adult conversation, he's 8 now, and I do, like, I'm very transparent with him. It's just mind-boggling to me, because he's so perceptive, and like, literally, I'm just like, I feel like I'm talking to someone my age sometimes. And yeah, it's just been crazy. It's been a whirlwind of experiences, especially through my divorce. GT really loved my ex-husband, and he moved away before we split. And so when I had him next, it was the first time I had him like stay with me for a prolonged period of time, with Elliot, you know what I mean? And because my aunt had to have surgery, so she needed someone to help take care of him. Granted, I was living in a basement apartment at my Aunt Carly's, so we weren't like completely alone, but I've taken him on my own since then. And it's just crazy because he's getting to an age where he's so self-aware, and he has questions for me. You know what I mean? Like when I had him stay with me at my aunt's house for that couple of weeks, he had a lot of questions about his dad. He wanted to see pictures of his dad. Anytime we would drive like past his workplace, he worked at the refinery down in South Salt Lake, or South Utah, Southern Utah. Well, it's in Salt Lake, but yeah, you guys get the picture. He'd get really emotional. He's like, my dad worked there, and he would cry. He's very touched by this, and that was really cool. But that during that visit, there was some confusion. He kept calling Elliot his cousin, and I was really worried about that for a while. Like I didn't, like I said in the beginning, didn't want there to be any confusion. But I also didn't want to like overstep and say anything to my aunt that might hinder my relationship with her, my connection with him. You know what I mean? So I didn't really say anything. I just kind of stewed over it. And then the next visit we had, it was completely different. He's older. This was probably like 6 months ago as of this recording date. But he was with my aunt, and I will say this, like, it's been really hard navigating the relationship between aunt and mother, like adoptive mother of my child, because, it's human nature. Like, it's inevitable that you're going to get territorial. And so I don't know, like it's been hard in the past, like not to have like some negative feelings, but as I've gotten older, like it's been easier, and I've wanted to get to know her as a person and a friend rather than just my aunt and Grady's mom. You know what I mean? So that's been helpful. That's been huge. But for the first time in 8 years, we had a visit all together. Like we were actively all doing things together. We went for a walk. We got yelled at a dirt bike park because the kids were running up and down the dirt BMX hills. And I know for those that like to BMX bike, like you're going to yell at me for that because it takes a lot of work to make those jumps. But anyways, they're kids. And it was like fall or like early spring. So nobody was out riding. But we got yelled at, got threatened, the cops on us. And that was just funny because I never had the opportunity to see my aunt in that light. Like she's funny, like she's a spitfire, and she's fun. Like she's playful. And that was, that brought me a lot of closure in a weird way, closure that I didn't think I necessarily needed. And then we get back to my condo and Grady's asking me questions like, you guys know ex-husband is ex. So Grady's like, is ex my dad too? Like in reference to Elliot. Like he's like, are we full brothers or half brothers? And I was kind of like taken aback by that because like he's never asked me questions about the adoption up front in front of my aunt. So at first I was kind of like, oh, is this okay? And, she didn't say anything. And so he's like, well, no, like your biological dad's be-bopping around, don't worry. But it's then like my aunt told me that she kind of keeps tabs on him and like, oh, by the way, did you know that he just had another kid? And I was just like, no, I didn't. I had no idea. I had no clue where that guy is, but that's crazy. And then Grady or GT got on the tangent that he's like, wow, so like I have a brother and a sister in the world. I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's cool. I was like, that is pretty cool, you know? But then this last visit, which was just a few weeks ago, we pick him up, take him to I'm taking him down to the museum at Thanksgiving Point, which if you don't know where that is, it's a freaking trek from my house, like an hour and a half, probably, Ogden. But, we passed the refinery where my uncle worked, and he got sad again, and he starts asking me all these new questions. Questions like I was not prepared for, you know what I mean? Like, it started because he turned to Elliot, and he was like, Elliot, how many mommies do you have? I'll never forget this. And Elliot's like, I think just one. And GT's like, oh, that's cool. I have two. I have my birth mom, which is our mom, and I have my mom, Amy. And I'm driving, and I'm literally like trying not to like be all wide-eyed and like, holy shit, you know? But then he turns to me from the back seat, and he's like, right, Alicia, like, we came from the same belly, and you're my birth mom? And I was like, yeah, I am. And he's like, and you gave me up for adoption because you were too young and you couldn't take care of me, right? And I was like, so in shock. I'm literally thinking like, is this really happening right now? But I was just like, yeah, I mean, like, that's pretty much it. But like, I made that decision because I love you more than anything, right? And it's like, yeah, you gave me pretty cool parents. And I was so moved by that. I was literally like, I never thought this day would come. I remember going through it. I remember that first year, just like Ellie's story. And I literally was like, I'm never going to get out of this. I don't know. I would have sold my soul to escape that pain. You know what I mean? I look back on that and I just like, how did I do that? How did I get through it? I don't know. People ask me, like, how are you able to do that? There have been some meaner people in the past who are like, how could you do that? You know what I mean? It's all in the phrasing, fam. But I look back on it now, and after that conversation with him, I was just like, holy fuck. Like, I've dreamt of this moment for 8 years. And it gave me this massive sense of peace and knowing that my son is going to grow up knowing exactly who I am and knowing that he is so incredibly loved. And I did what I did out of love for him. I didn't think I'd ever feel peace in this scenario. And with life having a lot of fuckery in it, because it'd be true, it's just kind of all come full circle. And I'm at a point with my mental health now where I'm actively seeking therapy through BetterHelp. And I'm going to be real with you guys. I think I need to get back on some anxiety meds because it's just been the worst it has been in probably the last 5 years. You should see my nail beds, for Christ's sake. Holy shit. But, we're persevering, and just like we always do. But with the recent events of, and I'll link this tidbit from a pre-recorded episode in about this story I share with my friend Hannah, who's been on a few times. But yeah. Is this taboo? So I need to give you a little context because I got a message on Instagram from a listener, and it's actually somebody that I never, we didn't ever really know each other, but we, baby daddy number one was her boyfriend right after I had GT. So right before I left and moved to Sacramento, I reached out to baby daddy number one, because my aunt and uncle were trying to extend the same offer that they had given me, or same gift, I suppose, in having some kind of connection with GT. So I reached out to him via the only way I knew how. And I messaged him through social media, just asking him, if he did want to meet with them or, set up any pictures or visits or whatever, because he was getting older, after the 6-month mark. Adoption is finalized, case closed. So it's not like either of us could ever go back and change our mind. You know what I mean? But this person who emailed in actually was his girlfriend at the time when I reached out to him, like I said. And the last conversation we had wasn't a good one, I should say. But not only this, because I got this message in the early morning, but this day was just filled with, I like to think, universal whispers. As I was saying, everything's just kind of been coming full circle. I've gained some closure. I've gained a better understanding of my own emotions and why I felt the way I did going through it and, thereafter. So yeah, let me just read this to you. I just really appreciated this because it was just like, shit. She said, "Hi, I know this is super weird to reach out, maybe, but your podcast popped up on my Spotify and I've been listening to it and I realized it was you. And I feel like for myself, I wanted to reach out. Your adoption episode was really, really insightful and it was really good to hear your perspective on it. I'm sorry for the last time we talked. I was young and naive and I was only getting one side of the story. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to really reach out, and I hope I am not crossing any boundaries, but it has always bothered me how our conversation went because I don't feel like I would react the same way now, years later, with all the growth I've had and separation from a certain someone. I feel like when I was in a relationship with him, all I could hear was his side, and I hurt for him because he made it about him, not about you or the child. I never got the full perspective, and my reaction was super inappropriate and hurtful towards you." And we went on to have a conversation, and I just want to give a shout out to this person because after all this time, I think she gave me a sense of closure that I never really thought I needed. And that was huge. And to have that happen randomly and to have her happen upon the podcast randomly, right, and not realize it was me until episode, what was that, 4 or 5? 4. Yeah. I was like, bruh, I don't care if this shit doesn't go anywhere. But if something resonates with any of you, that is exactly why I'm doing this. And it took me a moment to process what she had to say because there was more, but I won't go into it out of respect for her. But eventually I was like, you know what? I feel like I'd like to respond because this is why I'm doing this. I want to connect with people. I want to connect with everyone and anyone who feels that they've been touched by my story or anyone else's who's been on here, And I think the biggest thing for me in the end in my response is I was just like, I appreciate your words. And though much has happened since we last spoke, I want you to know I forgave you 8 years ago because I feel like carrying around hatred and that pain. I had to do that with my dad. Yeah. I mean, that is a mental health killer. Yeah. It really is. And so that was the morning of my day. All right. And what was even crazier to me is because I don't see my oldest son that often anymore is he's in town right now. Is he? Yeah. So it was just kind of ironic that popped up and he's here so close by. But 2, when my uncle passed, or was dying of cancer, my family made up, those Lance Armstrong bracelets, like the plastic ones, yellow.
Live Strong?
Yeah, Live Strong.
Yeah.
So they're the same material, but they were printed on like a camo print, and it had Just Live on it, which was my uncle's motto, and then TB on the back for Todd Bates. And so 200 of those or so, I don't know, maybe 100 more, I don't really remember, but were made up for people who were helping with like fundraisers. There was even like a run for him and another little boy that, had the same brain tumor. But they were like passing them out to people who helped with that, or people who were in the family, friends, people who were in like his funeral procession.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been 5 years since he's passed now. And my oldest son was 2 when he did pass, so he was very young. His memories of him are sad, actually, because they're all of him sick. But first off, let me say, like, I think it was about a month ago, we go to his cemetery, and drop off some flowers. And we're visiting, and Elliot's really trying to understand the concept of, like, what being buried is, like, why we're here. Like, I want to walk around. Like, he really wanted to go across the cemetery, up the hill to this heart-shaped headstone. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, we're visiting with family, and I had to, like, have a talk with him. I was like, there's a body here that was Uncle Toddy's, but his spirit is all around us, kind of like the earth, energy. It's tangible, if you pay attention to it, you can feel it. And so he's like, oh, okay. Well, literally, that was the conversation. So finally, he's like, Mom, like, I really want to go up to this heart tombstone. I'm like, okay. So we trek across this cemetery, up the hill, and this beautiful girl had her senior picture on her headstone. And Elliot runs up to it, and he's like, oh, my goodness, she is beautiful. Aww. And he starts kissing her picture. And I'm getting closer, and I'm kind of looking at it, and there's this, like, bracelet on the base of her headstone. And I walk up. I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like Todd's Just Live bracelets. And I get closer. I'm like, oh, that's weird. It's camo and everything. And I was like, maybe this was a common, like, print or whatever. Like, maybe it's more common than I thought. But then I picked it up, and it said TB on it, Just Live.
Oh, my God, no.
And I was like, I literally, like, was frozen. And Elliot's singing his songs like he always does, picking grass, kissing this girl's picture. And I'm literally, like, looking around me like, dude, where the fuck are you? Like, it, like, literally was, like, chills. And that was huge. Like, I took a picture, sent it to my whole family. I was like, this is crazy. And, of course, you try to rationalize it a little bit, right? Yeah. Like, well, it's in the same cemetery. Whatever. No. Like, but it was 5 years ago. I mean, it probably would have gotten eaten up by a lawnmower.
No, that was a sign.
Right.
It was.
Right.
Because my grandma passed when I was 6, and I remember very little things. I was gifted all of her graphic T-shirts because I'm very a big T-shirt graphic wearing type of lady.
I know, yes, I love it.
And so her and my grandpa, they were the type of old couple, even though she died only when she was 60, when they would go to Disney World or an amusement park. She would make them both get the most obnoxious matching graphic T-shirt, and they would have to wear it the entire trip. So I was gifted all of them, and they all smelled like, do you know that perfume Taboo?
Yes.
It doesn't smell good, but it
smells like old lady.
It was hers. And I'll be cleaning, and I haven't touched that shit in years. And she will. It's the weirdest. It's happened in every single house. And again, she died when I was like 6,
young.
And I'll just smell it all of a sudden. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, she's here. She's here. I swear to God. And Brody doesn't know what I'm talking about because he doesn't know what that smell is.
Yeah.
But it sends like shivers down my spine, and it's comforting in a way, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You want to hear the kicker?
What?
So yesterday, I'm at work, and I work on a military base installation. So it's a high security. You know, you have to go through a gate to get on there if you're not local to Utah. And the same day after I get this message from this girl, God bless her, and I'm just like really emotional, really feeling nostalgic, you know, like, damn, like, dude, like, I haven't thought about this shit in years. Like, man, Ann Grady's here. What a trip. Like, you know, I'm literally tripping out about it. And I go outside, and I even took pictures of where this was located, okay? Because it's so fucking weird. I have to show you where I found this. I go out, and it's hot, and I'm wanting to bum a cigarette because I'm back on the fucking wagon. But all my typical older gentleman friends who oh, you hit your toe.
I stubbed my toe.
I'm sorry, that's the worst. All my older gentleman friends who I usually bum cigarettes from are in our usual smoking spot. So, you know, I walk down the sidewalk a little bit in front of my building, and I like standing in front of this like garage type thing, and like the corner, because there's just like this tiny little bit of shade, and I'm looking down at my phone, and then I kind of like turn into the corner, so I'm like facing the building, and there's like this little crack in between the building and this like cinder block wall, and this wall is just like one of those walls to like shield like ACs and stuff, like doesn't go around the whole building. Yeah. So yeah, this is where the building was, the corner. I was literally standing in this corner with the shade.
Okay.
Right here. And I look down at my feet. No! And there is a Todd Bates Just Live bracelet right next to a Black Widow, I might add. Like, yeah, straight up.
That's just kind of there. But...
This Black Widow is right next to it.
Oh my God, don't zoom in on it. Oh my God.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, this thing is covered in cobwebs. It's, like, thrown in the rocks with all these cigarette butts.
Where's he from?
My uncle?
Yeah.
He's born in Salt Lake, I think. Or maybe Ogden. But, yeah, I mean,
like, where did he live, like, most of his life?
In Utah. But he
near
didn't,
the base?
No, he didn't work on base. He worked at the oil refinery up in North Salt Lake.
Oh my God. Okay.
I literally was like stuck there staring at it because I was like, there's no fucking way.
Well, like, what are the odds of that happening
I asked
within 18 hours of each other?
Well, okay, no. So the first one I found probably about a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But still, like, he's been gone so long, and where there were so few made, I asked my mathematician friend, I was like, statistically, what are the odds of this? And he's like, very, very low. And I was like, yeah, like, that's
what I'm saying.
That's fucking weird, right? And I was just like, that's the universe talking to me, right? And he was like, I think that's fair to say. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, and so I didn't know what to do. I literally, like, FaceTime my dad. Because, for one, there's this massive spider next to it. And I'm like, Dad, what does this look like to you? And he's like, that looks very familiar. And I was like, doesn't it? And he's like, you need to kill that spider and pick it up. And I'm like, no, it's under all these cobwebs. Like, I don't want to touch it. Then I call my mom. And she's like, you need to pick it up. Like, that's a sign. You know, and so finally I, like, walk around the cinder block wall, and I'm hucking rocks at this big-ass spider, and I'm wearing it right now. But I was just like, well, shit, man. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to do something, you know? Like, or, like, what are you trying to tell me right now? Or are you trying to tell me that I'm on the right path, or, like, to be patient, or that you're there?
I think he was just telling you that he was there, because you were like, where the fuck are you? And he was like, I'm right here, bitch.
Dude.
I'm right here.
And that was the most astonishing thing about it, because all of this other shit comes up amidst, you know, my struggling mental health, if you will. It hasn't been that terrible, but you know what I'm saying. Like, and then the message, and then I just was like floored. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I just want you guys to know, Ellie, it's been an honor getting to know you. Thank you for reaching out to me again, and being willing to share your identity and your full story. And you're going to have a beautiful labor. And I'm so glad that you've been able to find a adoptive family that jives and works for you. As we know from episode 4, like that can be really difficult right now. Sarah's sister Kylie's perspective is key in that episode because she is an adoptive mother, and it doesn't matter what spectrum you're on in an adoption journey. It's an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. So, you're gonna kill it, Ellie. I'm keep us posted. You're gonna do amazing, and this baby's gonna be beautiful, and it's so blessed to have you. She's gonna be a gorgeous little girl. I want to give some other shout outs to Miriam from Michigan. She encouraged me also to start singing again. She was like, girl, I want to hear this, if you can do this. So that was several weeks ago. So I'm sorry, Miriam. You get your shout out now. Much love, fam. Got an email from Adrian from South Salt Lake. Shout out to you, girl. She said, I love the podcast. You guys are hilarious. I look forward to it every Friday. Thank you so much. Kaylee from New Mexico. She said, you guys make me laugh. I love listening to your podcast. There's Kaylee, thank you. Jordan from San Fernando, California. She said that she found the podcast from our friend Tyler. So shout out to you too, Tyler. You guys are awesome. Thank you for spreading the good vibes and some taboo talks and candid convos. Jordan, welcome to the fam. And of course, Sarah, who wished she could be here. She wanted to thank you guys for all the well wishes and just all the kind words, and congratulations on Miss May being born. She says she loves you guys. She misses you. So all that being said, I hope you guys enjoy your evening, your day, your lunch, supper, whatever. I hope you are staying safe out there. Make good decisions. Know I love you. Love yourselves. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. Okay? Okay. Bye, guys.
Glad goodbye. I'll talk about them.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions about adoption or, are just curious, want to learn more, I will link a great source for adoption in our show notes. It doesn't matter where you're at. It has a lot of general knowledge, statistics, outreach programs, birth mother groups, adoptive parent groups. It's a very valuable tool if you're going through something similar or considering a placement, or if you're on the flip side and you're adopting. Like I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter which end of the table you're on in an adoption. Everyone is involved. But I tell you guys, adoption is not a taboo thing. Not anymore. Not if I can help it. I want you to reach out to me if you have any questions, or if this resonated with you in any way, shape, or form. If you're adopted yourself, let's connect. Let's share some perspectives. Adoption is an incredible, amazing, profound, phenomenal thing. And like I've said, There are so many children out there that need help, that need loving, consistent, reliable parents. Parents that will just care. Someone that will just care. So, yes, if this episode resonated with you, definitely reach out to me at hardtalkswithbnh@gmail.com. If you're ever curious, like, how to find all of our links for everything, like our Instagram, our Twitter, our Patreon now, you can go to our Instagram page at Hard Talks with BNH and click the link in our bio, and it will literally bring everything up, including our Buzzsprout page. So guys, I love you. I hope you have a good rest of your week. This was really good for me to open up and share this. So I appreciate you as my fam members, being the Hard Talks fam, for listening, for caring, for supporting us, and being there for me. I'm here for you too.